Street. And the Rebbe would visit her every single day. Didn't miss a day. In fact, as many of you heard on the Living Torah of this week, that she writes in her diary that although her apartment was so small, she felt when the Rebbe would come, she felt like she's living in a big apartment. And also, even though she was suffering so much, had so many things bothering her, but when the Rebbe would come in, everything would disappear and would give her chayas until the next 24 hours when the Rebbe would come again. So anyhow, because the Rebbe would go there, and this was, as we know, on 1418 President Street. The first building is on the corner, the apartment building. It's called 1414. And the next attached building is 1418. So she lived in the second building on the ground floor. When you walk in, you walk straight through the first apartment in front of you, and that's where she lived. So my brothers and I, we were little kids, and I don't know who came up with the idea to hold the door open for when the Rebbe comes, because the door of that building was a very tall steel door, very heavy. And as kids, we had to really push to get it open. So we thought, why should the Rebbe have to push it? We'll open it. And we used to either take turns or do it together and watch the Rebbe go in and later the Rebbe come out. Yontif, and maybe also Shabbos, I don't remember, I was a little kid then, Rebbe Chana would come from 770, and when we saw her coming, we would run ahead and open up the door for her. She wouldn't come alone. She had an escort of two Rebbitzins. If I remember correctly, it was Rebbitzin Katz and Rebbitzin Mentlik, who would escort her, and I would hold the door open. Sometimes my brother, sometimes both of us. So when she passed by me, she was so proud of what I did that she pat me on my shoulder, like giving me a thank you. Did she know who I was? I think she did. How do I know? Because another time, when we were waiting for the Rebbe to leave Rebbe Simchan and go back to 770, so we were standing by the door, me, my brother, I don't remember how many of the brothers, and the door opens, and the Rebbitzin and the Rebbe are standing at the entrance of the apartment. The Rebbitzin saw us, little kids, and she says to the Rebbe, "Do seinen die Winter einiglach." My mother's mother was Mrs. Winter, and she was close with the Rebbitzin. So obviously she recognized us. She said, "Do seinen die Winter einiglach." These are the grandchildren of Mrs. Winter. Okay, that's just a little introduction. Vav Tishrei, as we know, was such a special day. The Rebbe tells us many things to learn from Vav Tishrei and from Rebbe Simchana's dedication to help Yidden, to help her husband, getting the ink so he can write his Chidushei Torah. Not going into all those details right now. If I understand correctly, there's going to be an Neshei meeting, so you'll hear more details from Yetz Hashem. And the men can look into Aim HaMalchus, or Aim HaMelech, whatever it's called. So, in the past 3 shiurim, we learned the Maimer, Usha'avta Mayim B'sasein. We didn't learn the whole Maimer. We learned only a chelik. But when it comes to Chassidus, it says, Ha'etzem kishat ha'teifis, v'miktsasai ha'teifis b'kulai. When you have something which is atzmiistic, you have one piece of it, you have the whole thing. So we have the whole entire Maimer capsulized in the little bit that we learned. all about Simcha, about Nischayayin. There is another thing that the Rebbe gave us together with that Kuntres, and it was a letter that was Michtav Klali to everyone about Rosh Hashanah, which the Rebbe dated Vav Tishrei Tafshin Nun. And this letter came as a continuation of two previous letters that the Rebbe wrote about Rosh Hashanah, as the Rebbe would do every year, write a Michtav Klali, and we would say Tafshin Nun to have three letters. One the Rebbe wrote on Chai Elul Tafshin Mem Tes at the end of the previous year. The second one that he wrote on Chaf Hey Elul, and the third one Vav Tishrei, which is a Hemshech, a continuation. So it's obviously, if we're learning the Mayim that Rebbe gave us, you should also learn the Michtav, which we will bears as Hashem do. But the third Michtav, since it is Nekudas of the first one and the second one, so I'm gonna skim through it just Nekudas, and like this we'll be prepared for learning the third letter. So the first one, as we see, is from Chayel Tafshin Mem Tes, where the Rebbe writes, this is the Chayel is the Yom HaLedes of the Shnei Ma'oris HaGedolim, the two great luminaries, which is the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. And he mentions the thing that's brought in the Sichos, that the last 12 days from Chai Elul until Rosh Hashanah correspond to the 12 months of the year, and we prepare ourselves during those 12 days for the entire, we make cheshbon hanefesh for each of the passing 12 months. So therefore, the Rebbe says that let's take a look at what we can make a hachana now for the coming year in a way that we'll be able to bring it along for the entire year in all three things of Torah, Vedic, Milas, Chasad. So before the Rebbe starts talking about the particular Maila, the virtue of this Rosh Hashanah, that it comes out on Shabbos, which is the Kriyas of this year, Tafshin Pei Aleph. So the Rebbe starts talking about B'chlal, that what's the inyan when Rosh Hashanah comes out on a Shabbos. It's a very special year, and like the Rebbe said many times, it's a Shabbos-tic year. Shabbos means menucha, peacefulness. So we're going to have eineg and menucha, and all the brachas are going to come along with it. And that's what the Rebbe points out here, that one of the most important foundations and important things of this year is the fact that Rosh Hashanah came out on Shabbos, and the fact that it's called Rosh Hashanah means it's like a Rosh, like a head. We don't call it Tchilas Hashanah, beginning of the year. Call it the head. Because when you say it's the head, just like the head of a person controls and leads the entire body, the same thing is when you say Rosh Hashanah. So let's take a look and analyze what's so special about this year, that it has in itself the spirit of Shabbos throughout every single day of the year. Every moment of the year, not just the seventh day of each week, but every day is a Shabbos-tic day, because it's coming from Rosh Hashanah, which started off with Shabbos, and since that's the Rosh, it affects all the limbs of the body, so to speak, all the days of the year. What is Shabbos? So what the Rebbe is going to say, I'm just going to give you an outline first and then say more details, then we go to the next letter. The Rebbe is going to bring out, and in Shabbos we see two opposites, two extremes. On one hand, it's such a holy day, it's Shabbos Kodesh. On the other hand, you would think Shabbos Kodesh, the person should only learn and daven, do spiritual stuff. But we see that we dafke eat meals, we eat seudos, and achila and shtia and so on and so forth. What does this teach us? When we say Shabbos is a time of Kedusha, it's a time that we're supposed to remove ourselves, elevate ourselves higher than the world. We elevate ourselves from in a higher way that we don't do any work. Like it says, we stay away not just from mundane work, mundane subjects, uvden dechayil, whether even b'dibur, you don't talk weekday stuff, and we're not even supposed to think. There's a mice in Rishalmi, the story about a Yid. He came out on Shabbos and took a look, and he saw that his fence around this field needed repair, and he thought about it. And then he had charat. Why did I think about a weekday thing on Shabbos? So even the thought we should try to control on Shabbos. So that's why Shabbos we refrain from all kind of vachadika weekday stuff. What do? That's so made up. What we don't do. What do? We fill up the Shabbos with all things that have to do with Shabbos, learning Torah, adding more time in davening with your whole heart, tefillah b'kavana, in preparation for davening. So that's one side of Shabbos. It shows you removal from the Gashmistic world. On the other hand, we see that Shabbos is not only for the Ruchnius, but also the Gashmias. For example, eating, drinking, sleeping, and so on. It becomes a mitzvah v'einik Shabbos. Like it says, v'karas ala Shabbos, eineg, that Shabbos is a day of eineg. So we have to satisfy our bodies and elevate it to Kedusha of Shabbos. So we see that Shabbos has two sides to it, which are really one. That on one hand, we remove ourselves from Gashmias. On the other hand, we involve in the Gashmias in the way that Torah tells us, which is permitted on Shabbos, to elevate those things to the Kedusha of Shabbos. Now the Rebbe translates it more down into the world. Just like there is a Shabbos in Zman, in the concept of, in the realm of time, there's also a Shabbos in the realm of people and in generally in the world. What is Shabbos in the world amongst people? The Yidden. How do we know the Yidden are like Shabbos? Don't we say in Avdallah, Amavdal ben Kodesh Lachel, ben Yisrael La'amim. So Hashem compares us that just like there is Shabbos in Chayil, there is Yisrael La'amim. So that emphasizes that Yidden are like Shabbos. And just like Shabbos is separated from the weekdays, also the Yidden are called a Goy Kadosh. And V'ramamtano, the Eibishter lifts us up higher than all the other nations. Amongst Yidden itself, there is a Shabbos, Sheva Shabbos. What's the Shabbos, Sheva Shabbos? That are the Talmidei Chachamim. Those who spend their whole time in Shabbosdik kind of occupation. They don't go to work. What they do, they sit and learn Torah the whole time. Like it says in Zayah regarding Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, that he was a level of Shabbos LaHashem Kodesh. Including in this, the Rebbe says, what it says in the Zohar regarding Rashbi, which is also referring to the Nesiyei Chabad, Nesiyei Yisrael Shebechol Dor V'Dor, especially including our last generations, the two Ma'iris HaGedolim, the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, and until Nesidei Reinu, the Rebbe the Shver, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbe says they are the Shabbos in Shabbos itself, because the Kedusha, the godly Kedusha, shines in them in a way of Havdalah and Reimemus and Isnasos. That's why they're called Nasi, uplifted. So even amongst Yidden, which are already called Shabbos, they are even on a higher level. But in any case, we see that the Torah compares Yidden and Talmidei Chachamim and Asiyah Israel to the Kedusha of Shabbos, because that's our job. We have to do like Shabbos. What does Shabbos have? The two extremes. That on one hand, it's very holy. On the other hand, it permeates also the Gashmias. That's our job in this world, to be a Goy Echad Ba'aretz, to bring Hashem Echad into Aretz, into Weltishkeit, into earthly matters. What does this have to do in practical terms? And since Rosh Hashanah has to affect the entire year, so the Rebbe says we should take a look and make sure that every day of the year we should feel an uplifting of Shabbos. How? So just like Shabbos, we lift ourselves up by doing things of Kedusha. We add more in the Kedusha work that we do, in the holy work. So also during the week, during the weekdays, every day, we should also do, like the Rebbe says, whether it's improving the way we do mitzvahs, to do it in a much more novel way, more a new hidur, or to renew our kviyasitim, to have time for learning Torah, also a new addition to our Avodas HaTfilah, and so on and so forth. That is bringing Shabbos into every day of our life. Together with this, we have to bring the Shabbos into the week, into mundane matters, into the Chayil, into the Gashmias, just like Shabbos, so that all the regular things that we do throughout our week, whether it has to do with Machshava, Dibra, or Maisa, it should also, the Gashmistic of things, should be permeated with the spirit of Shabbos. Lamashal, for example, so if someone has a job or a business, so it should be permeated with the ruchnius and the neshama of it. Why am I doing business? Why am I going to work? Because kol ma'asecha yu l'shem shamayim. Why am I going to work? I want to give tzedakah. I want to have a clear mind to be able to learn Torah. I want to have money to be able to pay schar limud, tuition for the children to learn Torah, and so on and so forth. That's why I'm doing these kind of jobs. I'm doing a gashmistic job. So the goal is the ruchnius. It's to elevate it. Just like on Shabbos, why are we eating and drinking and sleeping? To elevate those activities to a level of Kedusha. And that's why the Rebbe concludes that we have to make sure that when we're doing our job during the year, it should not be a contradiction to learning and davening and so on and so forth. Like it says in Hayoim Yom, that Hashem already decides how much money his person is going to make. And you're not going to make a penny more, not 1 cent more than what Hashem decided. And if we want to get the full measure of what Hashem decided, we have to make sure that we do what we need to do as a Yid, davening b'tzibur, having time to learn Torah, and so on and so forth. Then the Rebbe concludes with a bracha, that every one of us should make a achlata and carry it out, as mentioned earlier. And then the Rebbe concludes, there is a pasuk that we say in Vayichulu. We say, Vayivarach Elikim Esiyim Hashvi, Vayikadesh Oisai. A bracha and Kedusha. So the Kedusha of Shabbos goes alongside with the bracha of Shabbos. So all of our achlatas, these strong achlatas, are going to bring about Birkas Hashem in everything, especially in the Ksivach Sima Teva, Lashana Teva Mesuka, the Gashmis, the Baruchnis, Gam Yochad, especially in the most important bracha that Hashem listens to our tefillos. And like David HaMelech says in the Kapitel Tilim, that was the Rebbe's Kapitel that year, Tavi Lefnecha Tefilasi, Hate Oznach Alidinasi, that my tefillah should reach you. bring to every single Yid a Shabbos Kodesh Hamushlam. That means that we're going to feel the real Shabbos, the ultimate Shabbos, the Yom Shekol Shabbos Menucha L'Chayei Ha'olamim, which will come taketh miyad mamash. The Rebbe finishes with many brachas. Then comes the second. Another Indian that we had this year, also about Shabbos. And that is the common denominator between Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. What is the common denominator between Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is a time when a person submits himself to Hashem. The bittul that we have to Hashem, just like when we make a hachtara, when we crown a king. You can't crown a king and say, but I'm going to do what I want. Crowning a king means that I am subjugating myself and devoting myself completely, the Levi nefesh, to Hashem. And that, when Hashem sees that we're ready to devote ourselves, that, so to speak, is mashpia, so to speak, on Hashem, that He should accept our crowning, that He should become our king. And that's what we do at Rosh Hashanah. The Yidden are megala by themselves, they revealed it by themselves, their devotion to Hashem, to the extent that they feel, what am I? I'm an Eved. I'm Hashem's servant. And this is the way it was in the first Rosh Hashanah, when Adam Rishon was created. He demanded and understood that what is the job of the whole creation? To accept upon himself the leadership, the rulership of Hashem. And that's why he went and said, let's bow down, prostrate before Hashem. Let's bench before Hashem, who made us, who created us. Because when you bow yourself and you make a hishtachava, that's a symbol of bittul, that we as a creature being created by Hashem are devoting ourselves to Hashem completely, and then Hashem becomes our melech, our king. And this is why every Friday, which represents the first Friday of creation, which was when Adam Rishon was created, and that was the first Rosh Hashanah. What do we say in the Shir Shal Yom? Hashem Malach Keus Lavish, that Hashem accepts our crowning and becomes our king. So what do we see? The Rosh Hashanah represents the union of bittul, subjugation and nullification to Hashem. This is also the connection and the common denominator with Shabbos. Shabbos also shows us how we recognize Hashem as our creator. Every time we celebrate Shabbos, why are we doing that? Because we are testifying that Hashem created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day, He rested. If He's the one who created the world, so He's the one to whom we have to be batal. We have to subjugate ourselves and follow whatever He tells us to do. So that's the idea that we get, the feeling we get from Shabbos, is that we are devoting ourselves and subjugating ourselves to Hashem, the creator of the world, as it's known that Shabbos engraves in a person, in the Yiddish neshama, the emunah in the creation of the world that Hashem created in 6 days. Even the Rebbe goes a step further, that the Kedusha of Shabbos permeates a Yid without even the Yid doing anything. It just takes place. It goes into the Yid. Yom Tov, it says elsewhere, Mekadesh Yisrael Vazmanim. Yisrael The Yidden decide when is Yantiv by announcing Rosh Chodesh and so on and so forth. But Shabbos is Mekache V'Kaima. It just comes to the world. Hashem puts that into the world. Everyone feels they're in front of the king. And that's one of the reasons I explain why we can't do Malacha. How can you do Malacha on Shabbos? You're standing right in front of the king. So Shabbos represents the bittul of a person to Hashem. So does Rosh Hashanah. When you have Rosh Hashanah and Shabbos together, wow, that's like a Shabbos in a Shabbos. What does that represent? So the Rebbe explains like this. There are two ways a person can be an Eved to a king. One of them is a simple way that the person knows, I myself, I have to devote myself. I can't do just whatever I want. I have to do what Hashem wants. And I'm giving up my ritzainos, my will for Hashem. But I do feel myself as a person. I have my independent being. Although I'm a slave, I'm a servant, but I feel like a servant who's devoting himself to the king. There is a higher level than that. Not just that I'm devoting myself to Hashem. I don't even feel myself as a Metzius. All I know is there is a king. I don't feel myself as a Metzius at all. I'll tell you something I heard once from Rabbi Shvei Olav Shalom when I was in his class, going back a few decades ago. Gave us a mashal on this. That he said it's a story actually that the Frierdiker Rebbe tells. I don't know where in the Sichos, but somewhere there. That there was a veteran soldier who served many, many years in the army. And he was once telling over stories that he went through when he was in the army. And he said, as he was telling the stories, one time he was telling the people that he was once called before the Tsar. First, he was called to the general, and then to one on top of the general, and he really got scared. He didn't know, is he getting punished? Is he getting sent somewhere else? Whatever. Until he came to the Tsar. When he came to the palace, when he was there, he said he had to come and face the Tsar. And as he's telling the story, he says, I opened up the door, and as soon as I saw the Tsar, and as he's telling the story, 25 years later, he fainted. He couldn't continue the story. He fainted. And when they revived him, he finished the story. And the question is, they asked him, did you faint when you came to the Tsar? No, he didn't faint. So why, when he's only telling over the story, and he fainted when he was mamish in front of the Tsar, for real, in actuality, why didn't he faint then? And the reason is because when he was in front of the Tsar, he was batel b'metzias. He didn't feel like, I am me, and here is the Tsar. So there was no one there to faint. He was no metzias. He didn't think about himself. All that took him over was only the fact, here's the Tsar. That's the only thing existed. But later, when he told over the story, and he's reminding himself of the fear and how he was awestruck by what he saw, then he's also down to earth and he's feeling himself. That's why, feeling himself with such a fear, he fainted. These are two levels of bittul. The Rebbe is saying there's an Eved who feels I'm a Metzias, but I am batel to Hashem. There's a higher one. I don't even feel myself like a Metzias. I don't exist. All that exists is the king. this point is also brought back down into halacha and Rosh Hashanah. The fact that we don't blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, it's not just because we're refraining from doing something, as if we're missing out on something, but rather, this is such a bitul on the Shabbos on Rosh Hashanah that I don't exist. There's no one to blow shofar here. There's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, that his bitul to Hashem is so strong. How does it express itself? Not through blowing shofar, but rather by not blowing shofar. Because he's not here. He's not a Metzius. He's completely bottled to Hashem. This is a very deep concept. We'll go into more details, but we have our time limitations. What is this Negei L'Poil? So the Rebbe says, we can bring it down to Ma'aseh B'Poil. In Avos Yisrael, there's two ways we can do the Mashal Tzedakah. One way is you give tzedakah, you make the person feel good, because it's nice. Why should I give him tzedakah? I'm not any better than him, I'm equal to him. In other words, I don't raise myself above him and say, I'm giving tzedakah to him, I'm the big guy. No, true Avos Yisrael is that you make the person feel so good. Like I heard that Mrs. Rubashkin, the mother of Shalom Mordechai, she used to give food Erev Shabbos to families who needed help. And she would say, it's like kings sharing between themselves. It's not I'm giving you. Kings who are sharing between themselves. That's the way we're supposed to make ourselves when we give tzedakah. Not to make ourselves higher than the other person feels good. But then there is a higher level of tzedakah that I don't even feel myself like a metzias. I'm the one who's giving the tzedakah, even in a nice way. All that exists is the tzedakah with no yeshus and metzias of myself, of the giver. So then you don't even have to watch out for ego and feelings of pride. And the whole metzias is the tzedakah. The Rebbe finishes with a bracha and this, just getting back, that's the idea of Rosh Hashanah and Shabbos, where the bittul is such a level that we feel like we're completely bottled to Hashem. All that exists is Hashem. That's how he accepts our coronation. This is also what strengthens every Yid and brings him to the recognition that what's a true Metzias of a Yid? Man, woman, and child, the Chelik Lakam Imal Mamash, and that's why Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are really one, and this is brought to expression on Shmini Atzeres when we say that Yidden and Hashem are one. And then this brings to fulfillment of all the brachas, and by Gula Mitzvah Shlema, Karev Mamash. Now we can get to the letter that was dated Vav Tishrei. I hope we have enough time. This one I'm going to read inside, and we'll translate it. Bez Hashem. Baruch Hashem Vav Tishrei Hitafshenun, Brooklyn, New York. Ol b'nei u'b'nei Yisrael b'chol mokim shehem. Hashem Aleiham Yichyu. Shalom Evracha. Paischin Bivracha. The Alter Rebbe uses this lashon in the Geras HaKodesh. Paischin Bivracha. Whenever you start with a bracha. Birkas Chasimo Gmach Simatova. A lot of people don't notice, but those who pay attention will notice that till Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe says Ksiva v'Chasimatova. After Rosh Hashanah, till Yom Kippur, the Rebbe says 4 words: Chasima, Ugmach Chasima Tova. And after Yom Kippur, the Rebbe says Gemar Chasima Tova. That means after Yom Kippur until the end of the Gemara Chasima, which is the Shana Rabbah, that's when the Gemara Chasima Tova is. Kol Panim, so the Rebbe is now saying, Birkas Chasima or Gemara Chasima Tova, since we're already after Rosh Hashanah, Nichnasnu l'Shana Chadasha. We entered the year Tavshin Pei Aleph, the new year. V'harei im bechol azmanim tzarich kol adam, and if in all times every person kachol she'yehei masbia ratzin matzavai b'yeda u'b'yisnagus b'poil, no matter how much already my matzav, my knowledge is and conduct is already b'poil in a good way, we should never be satisfied. Tama, tamid, lishayif, we should always strive, l'natzil es hazman, to utilize the time, k'dei lilmoid oidiyah said, to learn more, v'yidei kach, gam lahaysif b'hanagasai, to also add in the person's hanhaga, in his behavior, in his conduct, machshav dibro ma'aseh, because the Talmud should maybe lead the ma'aseh, you have to bring to action. If so is the case always, vadai, then for sure shekach hadavar, it's the same case. Kishenechnasam l'chana shana chadasha, we enter a new year. Hamivias at ita tizkaitis, that brings along with it a reminder. Shetzrichim lahaschil darge chadasha, v'nailas yaiseh shel shleimus b'chayim yom. Entering a new year is saying to us, hello, let's do something new. Like the Rebbe brings in the bottom footnote that a person, as the Rebbe Rashab, would make a new hidur, would take upon himself a new hidur before every Rosh Hashanah. Harayata azmana masim. So now is surely the right time to point out another important, special point. Which makes this year stand out compared to other years. In addition to the special meanings of Rosh Hashanah coming out on Shabbos, as were explained in detail in the previous two letters. Before the Rebbe tells us what's the new point that we're going to learn from this year, because it's a new year, the Rebbe says that even though we don't find a makar mamish somewhere in the Torah to tell us what I'm going to tell you, but it's okay. It was already emphasized many times, the Hira Shal Torah, that one should use any medium that he can use to bring a Avas Hashem, to bring an increase, a Safa, an Avas Hashem. Use anything it takes, even if it means to make up your own Dvar Torah, your own Vart. Even if you're going to make up something that doesn't even have a makar, a source in Sfarim. If the result is that because of this you're going to bring someone to more Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, go for it. I remember asking Rabbi Chadakov once if it's okay for me as a teacher to tell the children made-up stories which bring out Midas Toivus or Yiras Shamayim. Like sometimes a teacher finds it necessary to make up a story just to bring out the Midas Toivus. So he said, because there's a sikh from the Rebbe, by the way, the Rebbe said you have to be careful. Tells children true stories and no baba mices. no fairy tales. That's not something to tell kids. That's why I had this question. So Rabbi Chadakov told me that if the intention of telling these stories is to bring out a midah which is emes, then it's okay. Even if the story itself is not really true, but if it brings out a good feeling of Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvahs, and midah Torah, Yiddish Mayim, then we can do so. If I'm not mistaken, there's a sikha from the Rebbe, I think Chanukah Tavshem Mem Vav maybe, it's a Chanukah. The Rebbe talks about people when they tell stories, sometimes they exaggerate. Where do they have right to exaggerate or to embellish? Because they want to hit home. They want to bring the point home better. So they say it. The Rebbe was like justifying it. Perhaps that's why some people say in Talks and Tales, there are some stories which are lahaya v'lo nivra. They really didn't happen. So how come they're allowed to be there? Especially we know for a fact that the Rebbe was Magia all the Talks and Tales, the English section. And there are the Rebbe's notes and edits on these pages. And perhaps the reason is because each one brings out Chassidus, Yiddish Mayim, Yiddish Toivus. So this the Rebbe is saying as an introduction to what he's going to bring about what to learn from the fact that it's a new year. What's about the idea of being new? When you're talking about to find a way to add more in Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, this is not just for itself, which is only 2 mitzvahs. Hey, Mashayrish shall kol Tariyak mitzvahs. It says in Tanya, the Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem are the source of all the Tariyak mitzvahs. Shebachlal zeh, ga mitzvah mitzvahs terabanon u'minhagei Yisrael. This includes all the mitzvahs of Rabbanan and the minhagim. Kol ha'isnagus shel Yehudi. And therefore, the Rebbe says, "V'kesh lekach," connection to this, "Namid kan al haremes shel shana zu." The Rebbe says, this year is a new year, and it's Tavshin Nun. So even though we're making up this Rosh Tevis, Hey Tavshin Nun, Hayot Hey Shnas Nisim, that this year is a Nisim year, a miracle year, a year of miracles. So Rebbe said, even though we're making this up, but if it's gonna inspire us, let's go for it. To bring out from this which is going to help us for the whole year, especially especially since these Rosh Hashanah are being spread out and more publicized. And the Rebbe brings in the footnotes that the Rambam says that anything which is spread out in Tfutzes Israel and accepted amongst Yidden becomes part of Minig Israel. And not only in Minig Israel, it has all the koyach of a Ese and a Lois Hase. So let's take a look. What's the idea of miracles? This year is a year of miracles. So let's analyze what is miracle versus nature. Neis v'teva, shneim hin hanhagos elokiyos. Both of them are godly behaviors, things that Hashem does. Hashem conducts this world in 2 ways, Nes and Teva. Shekein gama Teva ba min HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not only miracles Hashem does in this world. The nature that we have is also from Hashem. Shehu yizbarech bara bekavas chukei HaTeva. Hashem is the one who created and set forth the rules of nature. Shebimtzeusam manig hu es ha'olam, through which Hashem uses these natural ways to conduct this world. But who's conducting the world? Hashem. So that's Teva. Teva is what Hashem is doing in a way that Hashem set those rules to be constant. Achidush al nes, V'gabe teva misbate b'kach. What does a miracle emphasize? What's the chiddush of that? Ha'hanaga nisis, ha'hanaga bilti degila shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's an unusual conduct of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how he's conducting the world. Which means, in other words, mashma'use shel nes hu davar gavaya u'merumam. What's the meaning of nes? Nes, it means something which is above nature, something which is raised above. Nes, loshen harama. How do we know nes is loshen harama? It's brought in different places, and that the Rabbi brings from Rashi in Parshas Yisrael. It also says nes alaharim, that's something which is raised above. Hanisis mevia reimemus bivriya. When a person sees hanaganisis, it brings an uplifting in the bria. It just lifts everyone up. It raises the entire world from its limited nature. When you see a miracle in front of your eyes, it like shows you, hey, Elokus is here. I'll speak from my own experience. When I, Baruch Hashem, recovered miraculously from the COVID matziv that I was in, and it was mamish tchias hamesim. So walking down the streets, and people see me, I see you, I see Elokus. I see you, I feel like I see Eliyahu Navi. I see a miracle in front of me, a walking miracle. Even till today, people look at me, they say, it gives them so much courage and betachin. They see Mamash Elokus in this world. So a miracle lifts up the world higher. So that's the difference between Nes and Teva. Teva is the regular Hanhaga, and Nes is an uplifted Hanhaga. Then comes also an Avodas Hashem. Kach gam be'inyan Avodas shel kol Yehudi, sheba tzrichos leishtakev shtei hanhagos, hanhaga tivis v'hanhaga nisis. The person serving Hashem is also both have to be reflected. The hanhaga, which is the natural way, where he's always constant, and then the miraculous way. What does that mean? So the Rebbe is going to explain. What's hanhaga tivis? Gam hanhaga tivis shel Yehudi mizbatat. Also, the hanhaga of a tivis of a yid mivatas, it expresses in his hanagos shehi ba'ofen muchlat kefi aros haTorah. When he's doing his natural, his regular way of serving Hashem in everyday life, he's also showing that this is my absolute way of following the Aros of Torah. Aval, kevan shehi snagus regila shel Yehudi, since this is the regular avodah of his, ari mugbelis lefi hamigbalis shel kachas ha'adam. But he's only doing so far as much as using his regular kachas. But then comes another level where a person is given kayach to raise above that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu manik liyehudi kayach la'avidos ba'ofen shel hanhaga nisis. Hashem gives the yid the kayach once in a while to raise himself above. Shebahu misreimein l'mayla mimigbelosav. He suddenly goes higher than his limits. Lo'izu bilvad shunasa tov yesa b'miktzas. Not only to become, I'll be a little better. Oh, I feel tov yesa b'harbe. I'll be a lot better. Like it says, you're supposed to increase in Kedusha. Okay, I'll increase a little bit, a lot. That a person is supposed to go higher and higher. I'll add a little bit more in my kviyas and learning Torah, or a lot more. Kabbalah shel hidur mitzvah chadash. I'm going to do a new hidur mitzvah. That's all teva. The Eibishter gives a person a koyach to raise totally above. I think we can bring over here the Maaseh that the Rebbe brings, that a person once was asked by the Frierdiker Rebbe to sponsor the printing of the Tzemach Tzedek Sfarim. And this guy was not shaykh bichlal to sponsor, to give so much money. It wasn't in his limits. But he knew if the Rebbe said so, he took it. He took it upon himself. And then new tzinoidos, new channels opened up, and he became so rich, the Rebbe said, that he not only was able to sponsor the printing of the Tzemach Tzedek, but he kept on staying rich for many, many years to come. That means a person knows, I'm giving a signal to go up. Go ahead, go for it. Even though it's way above, not just a little bit or more, way above in a way of ness. Go for it, because the Eibishter will open up the channels to be able to do it. And this is what this year is teaching us. This is the hint, the special hint for this year. Hashlichos. It's our mission this year. Shoshana Zu Teheshnas Nisim. And that is coming from the year Tavshin Memtes, which stands for Tashmeit Yodecha. What's Tashmeit Yodecha? That you have to let go. When a person owes you money, when it comes Shemitah, you have to let go. This represents the idea that Hashem lets go from all of our negative things that we had in the past. So Vadei Adavar, coming from such a year, Sheitz Kol Yehudi, by every Yid, Nimchaku, it was erased and deleted. Kol Advarim Abilti B'tzuyim, any undesirable things, Halulim Li Davik Li Yehudi, that can be attached to a Yid, Achukol Mahusei V'Staguseim Chayei Torah. That now his whole mahus, his essence, his being, his conduct, is the life of Torah. So coming from Tavshim Emtes, we have the ability to do so. And the Rebbe says, Kol Yisrael v'chezkes kashrus. Since we're able to do so, every Yid has a chazaka that he's the way he should. So Vadai Nitzel Kol Yehudi is Chodesh Elul. Every Yid surely used the days of Elul, Chodesh HaCheshbon. So Shnas Tashmit Yodecha, made the right Cheshbon. The second is called Maisav B'Shana Chilefes, to make a tikkun for all of his actions of the past year, and to fill up whatever he's missing. And lahashlim, the Rebbe says, can also mean ad lahashlamim eloshin shleimus. You could just fill up what you're missing, and then you can bring shleimus, bring it even to a higher level. La'aviyam l'shleimus hamaleya b'yosef, to bring it to the highest level of shleimus. Ubevadai zacha, and surely every yid was zaycha l'meloy hamechila haslicha v'akapara, to the full measure of Hashem's mechila haslicha and kapara for every yid, u'l'ksiva v'chsima taiva v'chol ha'pratim, and all details. This is coming from Tavshin Memtes. But now that we're entering Tavshin Nun, the year of Nisim, Bav and Neisif Lakach, in addition to this, we have the Hira V'Seder Aveda Chadash, the Shana Chadasha, a new Seder Aveda for the coming new year, Teishnas Nisim, Sha'ata Nidrish Kol Yehudi. Now it's demanded and expected from every year, Anoshim, Noshim V'Taf, Lavedim Atzmai, work on ourselves. Do the effort that it takes. Shehei Meroimom V'Nailo Legamri, to be way above. Achis Hanagose B'Shana Zu Tehei V'Vichinas Nes Legabe Hanagose B'Shana Shavra. That if you compare his conduct this year, you'll say it's not just a little better, not even a lot better, but in way of Nes, way, way above. In what does it express itself? Hanhaga Nisizu, and this miraculous Hanhaga, Avodas Hashem, Shal Yehudi al Yidei Torah, Utfila, and mitzvahs, b'li migbalis, without limits, tzricha liyos b'chol inyanim, should be in all aspects of his serving Hashem. Hein b'mitzvahs shehein ben adam lamakayim. Whether these are mitzvahs that between man and Hashem, v'hein b'mitzvahs shehein gam ben adam lachaveiroi, between one and another person. Heichel me'va'avtal re'acha k'moicha, beginning with Avos Yisrael, v'hein b'mitzvahs hakshuros im lo Yehudim v'yishuv ha'olam b'chlal, including also those mitzvahs have to do with our conduct as we deal with not Nishkin Yidden and Yishuv ha'olam b'chlal, and the settlement of this world b'chlal. Now that the Rebbe gave us our Avodah, the Rebbe is finishing. Kefishi Yadua, as it's known. Hashem acts with us a measure for a measure. That when our behavior, our conduct, the conduct of Yid is in a miraculous way, you know what it's going to do? It's going to arouse and bring about a miraculous behavior and conduct from Hashem towards us. Hein klap of kiprat, not just to the person himself who's doing it. Hein klap of kechelik klal Yisrael, but also to him as a chelik of klal Yisrael. Ve'gam klap elam kulay, and also regarding the entire world. Hu mamshich maybe as abrachis alikiyos gam leloy agbalis. The person, through doing his work in a way of nes, is bringing Hashem's brachas, the godly blessings, also without agbalis. And the Rebbe concludes with the bracha: V'yiratzin shal yidei kach shekol echad yasa achlatis heisonis b'chol hamiskol le'il, that through ever making strong achlatis and all the above mentioned, Yikabel HaKadosh Baruch Hu achlatos of miyad, Hashem should already accept it as if he did it. Ki'ilu butzu b'payil, as if he already carried them out. B'miyuchad me'achas shavanu nimtzoim kvar mispe yomim b'shana chadasha, since we're already a few days into the new year, b'vadai huchal b'vitzu v'asiyah b'payil mamish. So we already had a chance to do a few days of payil mamish of those achlatas. V'yikumu b'pashtus Rosh HaTevis shel Hashana Hazois, should be fulfilled, the Rosh HaTevis of this year, that it should be She'tehei Shnas Nisim, She'vadai Tiyah, that for sure will be Ukvad Heichel b'Poyel. It already started b'Poyel, Shana Shal Nisim, Shekol Yehudi Zoicha Liris B'Muchash, that every Yid is Zoicha to see vividly with his own eyes his Hanhaga Anisis Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem's miraculous conduct, ad lenis henisim, miracles within the miracles, va'ad lenes ha'ikri, nes ha'geula ha'amitis v'ashlema yidei Mashiach tzidkenu, she'az hiyu hanisim gedolim. When Mashiach comes, there are going to be even greater miracles. Afilu min hanisim shaya b'tzias Mitzrayim, that were in the time of going out of Mitzrayim, or kapirush razal ala pasuk, like the Chazal translate the pasuk. That like the days Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, in the future, by the Geula through Mashiach, I'm going to show you miracles. Chazal say it means shebiyachas, in comparison, you neflois. They're going to be neflois, wondrous, even legabe the miracles that were in Mitzrayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu memalias atfila halavavis, the heart, Hashem fulfills the heartfelt prayer, shall kol Yehudi v'shal kol HaYehudim, of every Yid and all the Yidden. Tavi lefanecha tfilasi. We're begging Hashem to bring our tefillah before Him. It should reach Him. Hatei az l'chalarinasi. Move your ear down to hear our rina. But what's Rina? Rina is with simcha, with joy. We're turning to Hashem with joy and begging Him to bring finally this year of Shnas, Plois Harenu, that we should see it b'poil mamash, maybe it's a golo amitis vashlema, take it from Yad Mamosh, becovered ubebirkas chasimo gmach simetova, the Rebbe's holy signature. Seid alle gesund, na gut gebenchte Jahr, and like the Rebbe says, trach gut wird sein gut, makes the Metzia so. It changes the reality. So let's all trach positive as much as we can, that this year the Eibishkin is going to pay us up for all the work that we have done all these years. It's a year of pay up. Pay up is the letters pay aleph. So Tavshin pay aleph Shnas pay up. It's time that He pays us up, brings us to Gula Shlema, and bring us that right away. So B'meila will already be for Yom Kippur, together with Mashiach Tzidkenu in the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi. Amen. Seid alle gesund. Achsimo gmach simatov.